Hello and welcome to Communications 6019 46. 46 is a number of our section. There are many sections of communications because, as the school has pointed out to us in the past, communications is vitally important in today's workplace. So what I'd like to do is basically go through the course and kind of give you an overview, of course, starting with my introduction. My name is Edward Matthews. I have an MA and a PhD. I teach in conjunction with the School of Language and Liberal Studies. Typically, we're found in A2003, but for the next little while, we're going to be online. And I just heard from last week that even this fall, we're very likely to be still online. Okay, if that's the case, what is really important here is your ability to communicate with me. So right here, this is important. My email address. So ematthews@fanshawonline.ca. That's how you can communicate with me if you have any problems, questions, concerns, queries, whatever it may be. And you contact me that way. Because otherwise, we were going to have to set up a meeting of some sort, and that's probably either very difficult or just virtually impossible. Okay, so this first set of slides will be an introduction to the course expectations. But what I want to do, first of all, is just describe the course. Okay, so what is this about? It is trying to refine and advance students' workplace communications ability. As you finish up your schooling, you may be in your second year, your third year, or maybe it's just a one-year course. But when you move out into the workforce, there will be expectations upon you to know how to communicate well, communicate properly, right? So you want to make sure that you can effectively communicate to another person, whatever it is that you're asking them to do or trying to procure or whatever it is. So those are communication abilities. Those are the things that we're going to look at and we're going to try to refine. So these would be presentation skills, research skills, business document writing. It would be direct and indirect emails and letters. These are very important. Now, if you don't know what those mean or what those definitions stand for, don't worry. That's part of what we're going to look at. So meeting and management team strategies are important. Business etiquette, netiquette as well, and emails. They're also crucial these days. And also advanced employment communications. This would be setting up a brand or setting yourself up through LinkedIn or some other entity on social media. So all these things are important because they present to the person that is communicating with you a version of yourself, because that is very important. You wish to present the best version of yourself through your ability to communicate effectively. So students learn about interpersonal and intercultural communications, high-low cultures, for example, monochromatic and polychromatic contexts, concepts and strategies. So there's a whole range of things that have to do with basically the global village that we live in. Right? We literally live in a global village in the sense that we communicate with each other quite effectively, but across time zones and borders and so on. We communicate with others in different parts of the world who might speak another language, live in a different culture, and we need to be aware of those differences. That is very, very important. Okay, so that was a course description. The course learning outcomes, and again, you don't need to memorize these. These are just here for you to understand that which we were trying to present to you. So the first one is to prepare and evaluate professional business documents in common formats, right? So here we're talking about formatting with emails, actual written letters, business letters, these kinds of things, and writing them with the appropriate tone, right? The appropriate structure and format, right? Direct and indirect, like I just talked about a moment ago. These become very important. Making sure that if you have any headers or graphics, that they work well. For example, you don't want to set up an email with a graphic that doesn't open up at the other end because the person at the other end doesn't have the software that recognizes it. So these kinds of things are very, very important. So you're going to prepare and evaluate professional business documents. That's the first one. The second one is to prepare advanced level proposals and research reports. These are going to be informational and analytical. We're not going to ask you to go and conduct interviews and perform research for the next 3 months. No, what you're going to be doing is gathering information on a certain topic. So you are effectively standing on the shoulders of giants, we'll say, as you are doing your work and you're finding out information about a particular subject matter. Okay, so these will be research reports based on your field. Now, I contacted the school to ask what Section 46 consists of, and I haven't heard back. So when we meet on, I believe on Thursday mornings between 9 and 10, that will be one of the questions I'm going to ask you. Is what is your major? What school are you enrolled in? Because that's important to me. Why? Because in that way I can set up research topics that are relevant to your course, right? Relevant to your field of interest. I'm not going to ask you to study some philosophical problem or some science issue or something, or global warming or whatever. I want to make sure that it is within your purview, right? Your area of interest. So these proposals and research reports are going to be summaries of information that's already out there. You're going to integrate these different sources together and present them to me in the shape of a research report. So that's a fairly major component. Then also in the last, probably the last 2 weeks, possibly 3 if we need it, depending on how many people we have in the class, you'll have a chance to present some of your information. And this is only like a little 15-minute presentation. In fact, when we're doing a Zoom, we can do those live, and I can actually allow you to work as a host. You can present PowerPoint slides, but again, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. So this is coming down, within a few months. Okay, that's the second one. The third, analyze, assess, summarize, and/or critique business-related case studies, articles or topics in terms of evaluation, in terms of editing or revision and summary, paraphrasing. All of these skills are very important because often when you are writing a report, for example, the report might be 25 pages long. Not in this course, no, but you could, maybe with a couple of other people, put together a report that is a substantial size, let's say 25 to 30 pages. That's a lot of reading. So you need to be able to go through and not only revise and edit the piece so that it is finished and presentable, but that you could actually summarize it and paraphrase, generally speaking, what this thing is about. Because part of the work in a research report is to write what's called an abstract. And an abstract is a clear overview of the general points, kind of, if you want to present to your conclusions in the abstract, you could certainly do that. But it's a way for someone to read through a 25 or 30 page or even longer proposal or report and read it in a matter of a paragraph or two maximum. Abstracts typically tend to be one long paragraph, maybe about a third of a page, we'll say. But that's a skill. That's a skill in itself. Okay, 4. Describe, demonstrate, and evaluate effective team, group, and meeting management strategies based on audience. You need to be aware of your audience. How much does your audience know? How interested are they in this material? What do you wish to have them learn, right? These are things that really matter to the writer and the researcher when it comes to the potential audience that will be reading your work. You need to know who they are. So you want to be not only aware of who they are, you want to be able to identify them. And if gender happens to be an issue versus nationality, religious affiliation, and so on, all of these things together fit in a profile of the potential audience. So these things can become important. 5, deliver professional presentations, live or virtually, right? In this case, it'll be virtually, using effective techniques and strategies. Now, again, I don't want to get ourselves too far ahead, but as we get a little bit closer to the presentations, we'll talk more in depth as to what these things can look like. And certainly using PowerPoints and using the Zoom meeting features, we'll be able to do that. And finally, number 6, assess various employment communications and create effective employment communication documents, whether they are in print, the business letter that is printed out and signed, digital information, emails, and so on. I don't think anybody sends a fax anymore, but you can, or oral or speech, right? Doing a PowerPoint presentation, that kind of thing. So that's basically it. So right now, the way in which the grading is broken down, as you can see, and hopefully my math is correct, I believe it is, this is how it's broken down. So the research report takes up 25% of the mark. So that's a quarter of your entire grade. So what I need to know when we meet on Thursday is whether you would like to work in groups of perhaps 2 or 3 or to work on your own, because we can't sort of have half and half. It will be all groups or all working solo. Now, why is that important? Because some of you may not be here in London at the present time, which means contacting and being in touch with other group members might actually be very difficult. You could actually be living, such as the course I just finished through Western University. One of my students was living or is living in Pittsburgh right now. Another one is living in Mumbai, right? Literally opposite ends of the world. But we would meet together every Thursday morning and we would go through the material. And so I don't want to make life any more difficult for any of you than need be. So when we meet on Thursday, I want you to think about and decide whether you want to work in groups, if you prefer that, or to work on your own. Okay, regardless, the research report will still be worth the same amount. The research proposal is also important. And as a matter of fact, if you look, we're going to go through the marks and I'm going to show you how they're set up so that they really reflect sometimes one major idea. Okay, so we started with a research report, 25%. A research proposal that is worth 5%. So right now, the research report and all of its kind of subsidiary or secondary ideas, that's already up to 30%. And if we jump down here to presentations and status update, there's another 20%. So fully 50% of your final mark is based on the research report and any secondary information that is going to happen. And the way it's going to work is the following. The first thing you'll do is submit a research proposal. You'll have maybe, let's say, 2 or 3 sources that you found. Again, lots of time. We're just starting here at the beginning of May. These aren't even going to be due till probably middle of July to the end of July, so somewhere in there. So the research proposal is likely going to be around the 7-week mark. So we'll have, again, lots of time to talk. So there's 5%. Then there's a status update, which is going to be around probably week 10, where I'm going to ask you, where are you at? How much have you gotten done? Now, this status update is not send me the finished product. It's just an update. Again, we'll talk about it. So if you look at the way the marks are broken down, 50% of this course is based on the research report, its proposal, its status update, and its presentation. So you're scaffolding your work towards one major piece. So if you keep that in mind, think about the fact that if you put some effort into it, 50% of your mark is going to be based on that one major report. Now, again, the research report, you can then turn around and take that and summarize it, paraphrase it. You don't have to revise it necessarily, but the research report will then become the basis of your what used to be, remember those in-class presentations, right? We used to have a class. Well, here they're going to be online. And we're going to be done, those will be done live via Zoom. So the presentation will be of your research report, whether individually or as a group. Again, it's up to you. But as you can see, there's 50% of the mark is just that. So in between all of this, there'll be an employment package, which is a resume and a cover letter. In fact, I would recommend looking for an actual job. Go through and assume that this job actually exists, which it should, and you're going to actually apply for it. So again, that'll be probably in about week 5. Routine business messages, they're 10% total. There's 2 at 5%. This is the direct and indirect email or the letter. The case study, which is worth 20%. There's 2 of them, and each is worth 10%, so a total of 20. And then what I call a practice interview. Now, because we are online, I can't sort of interview each of you one at a time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a short list of questions that I would like you to answer, because these are questions that typically come up during the interview process. And you end up having to answer these questions. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Why do you think you are the ideal candidate? Now, these are questions that some people might, shy away from, hope they don't get asked. But quite often, that one question, tell us a little bit about yourself. That's one that's going to come up. So why not be prepared, right? You can sit down and work out your answer, but there's nothing wrong with that because that's the answer that you can give to that prospective employer, right? That's why it's important. So that's what I want to do in terms of the grading. Okay, so when and where do we meet? We have a weekly 3-hour class, and it's broken down this way. Video lectures that are posted each week, like the one you're watching. What I'm going to tend to do is make, again, you can tell me whether you prefer short ones or one long one, because I want to get your feedback. But video lectures will be all the relevant information that I want you to think about or consider or look at. And those I will tend to post quite early in the week. Because even though we're going to meet on Thursdays, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., and then we start right at 9 a.m. sharp, the video lectures will be up there for a couple of days, for you to have a look at and think about it and formulate some questions if you have any. So virtual class discussion, virtual group meetings, we'll definitely have those. Those will be the Zoom meetings on Thursday mornings. And what I do is I post on the new announcements, right on the very first page of FOL for the course. You'll see a link to, in fact, you'll see it this week, a link to our first Zoom meeting, which will be this coming Thursday at 9 a.m. And then every week, links to the other videos will also be found in the same spot where the new announcements page. And that's the very first thing that you see. So hopefully everything will be fairly easy to find. Hold on one second. I just need a drink of water. Okay. So I mentioned earlier about contacting me. My email is ematthews@fanshawonline.ca. Please do put the course number and reason for writing because even though it's summertime, Fanshawe is just as busy as it is during the fall and winter. So what that means is I have over 100 students. I think this year I have maybe 120. So it would please me to no end for you to identify what course you're in, because if the email has that, then I know exactly which course you're in, what the email is likely about, rather than just sort of asking me, hey, sir, I didn't get the quiz done. Could you open it? Okay, which quiz? Which class? Who are you? So please put the course number and the reason for writing in the subject line. And again, subject line and, to and from and CCing people, these are all the things we're going to learn about next week. And most of you probably know how to do this, but it becomes even more important in a business setting because you're dealing with professionals that, depending on who they are, maybe just don't have that much time to sit around and kind of scratch their heads and wonder what's being said. So you want to be able to write correctly and well. Now, the required textbook, it's now kind of a recommended textbook. The school has kind of eased off a little bit because of the situation we're in. It typically is a required textbook, but because some of you may not be able to get into Fanshawe, you may not even be in London. So if that's the case, don't sweat it because my slides are based on the material found in the book. So if you do not have a chance to buy the book, the 4th edition, I think there might even be a 5th edition by now, this is going to be material that you will have a chance to learn regardless, because when I put these slides together, this was my source. This book was a source that I used. So you should be okay. All right. So why is this course important? Well, for all kinds of reasons, but Business Communication Now says, and works for me, why this course? Because it explains why communications have moved to the heart of the business practice and why communications are the #1 skill expected, communications in the plural, are the #1 skill expected of job candidates. Demonstrates the importance and the ethics, because the ethics of writing is very important, of tailoring business communications to audiences that represent different personality types, different ethnicities, because, again, this is a global village that we live in. The last time you were in school, if you've never been to Fanshawe and this is your first year, if and when you get a chance to go, just look around. See all the different kinds of people that are there from all different parts of the world. Be aware of that. Be aware that the ethnic groups that each one of these individuals belongs to thinks and acts and converses and communicates in slightly different ways. We need to be aware of that, and we need to respect that difference. So if we do that, we'll be fine. We'll be able to write very, very well. So, along with different personality types, we have organizational, political, and economic cultures that we need to think about in a global business environment. Because again, with international business, multinational corporations, whatever you may be doing, you're going to be dealing with people around the world. And even if you are working just here in London, or you want to head back to wherever you're living, you may run an online business. And that online business still is going to be dealing with people around the world, right? International customers. So all these things are important for you to always put your best foot forward when you are communicating. So we're going to try to balance theory and practice. Now, theory, don't scare yourself off. Theory in this case is very straightforward. It's just explaining why do we do this? Why is there even a difference between a direct and indirect email? What is that? Well, it has to do with presenting good or bad news. And if it is bad news, sometimes there are ways of morally and ethically presenting that information that will cause the least amount of pain to the person reading it. And those things are important. So that's sort of very briefly what theory is. It explains why the practice is done the way that it is. We should definitely think about expanding our understanding and our critical faculties in terms of picking the right word. Different words have different connotations and different meanings. We want to make sure that we can speak effectively, communicate well, and take the time to think of the right word, right? Because you want to make sure that when you're communicating with someone that you say what you mean and you mean what you say. And if you can do that, you will be able to improve your written and oral skills when it comes to business communications, because that is essentially what you're trying to do here. Okay, is this important overall? Well, absolutely, it is. So a new study, well, not so new, 2015, but still a reasonably new study, says of all the jobs from the Workopolis site from 2014, the top 10 skills requested by employers were the following. Top of the list, communication skills. There you are. Communication skills. Writing is the second one. So those two, more so than customer relations, sales, knowing Microsoft Office, or, be able to do an Excel spreadsheet, or any of these kinds of things. Teamwork used to be the second or third, literally at the bottom. But communications and skills and writing are the most important one. Okay, so employers wish to hire people who can communicate and certainly can solve problems, can work in teams. Yes, that's true. But these skills, they are sometimes more specific to, say, managers or group leaders, mid-management people, that have a group of individuals under them. But typically, unless your parents own the business, maybe, we don't know, you tend to start at the bottom, or somewhere near the bottom, and you work your way up. No matter what, you want to work your way up more effectively and probably in less time if you have these communication skills. That is important. So, sure enough, gotta love these crazy little things. There we go. And the survey says, okay, top 10 shortages amongst graduates: commercial awareness, communication skills, 64%, right? Ability to work in a team, all these things, conceptual ability to be able to think theoretically, to think abstractly, right? All these things are important. But of the employers surveyed, commercial awareness, okay, that's certainly important, but communication skills was still the number 2, right? Very important. Okay, last note here on assignments. Try to get them in on time. If there's going to be a problem of some sort, let me know, because the drop boxes will close very quickly. And let's say if it's due on a Sunday night at 11:59, Monday morning at 8 a.m., it's going to be closed. So if you know there's going to be a problem, you have to let me know, because otherwise I won't be able to accept it. Okay, so what I'd like to do now, because the screen's gone blank, is I'm going to throw on the next set of slides, and I'll see you in just a moment.